I like podcasts. I like reaching out to a new audience. I like sharing what I know. I think there's when people ask you certain questions, I feel that you always surprise yourself of what you actually know.
Thank you for having me, guys.
No, thanks for joining. So we've obviously, watched YouTube videos and done all the research we possibly can.
Jump down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess just quite interesting to hear how you got into it. I mean, it's not probably the most conventional of career paths.
I think, like anything, anyone that's working in any sort of field of self-development, I think you'll find their first project, it should have been themselves, and that was certainly that's certainly a big part of my story. Like, I came from a place where I was just frustrated with the sort of opportunities that were around me, my lack of knowledge and intuition, my social circle. They didn't really sort of have an ambition to get themselves out of the pattern of going to vodka revolutions every week.
What's wrong with that?
So for me, rightly saying, as you said in the intro, the book, The Game, was something that did make me very aware of the patterns that do exist in the way we interact as humans.
Mm-hmm.
And if we were doing this podcast some years ago, maybe 6 or 7 years ago, I would have told you yes, it was Neil Strauss's book that got me into this. But when you really do start embarking on a journey and you really understand what influences us, what steers us in a certain direction, what things earlier on in our life have an effect later on in our life, it actually goes back to the root issue being that I was actually bullied by girls at school.
Right, okay.
So, and that was something that I completely was not wasn't at the forefront of my mind. It was way back then. I completely forgot about this. And when I came to realize, I was like, wow, this has obviously had an effect on my life, because being bullied by girls, I was harboring this limited belief at a younger age that, okay, girls don't like me. Right, there's always going to be that conversation you have with your parents. Oh, you'll meet someone one day. It just seems so sort of like Disney.
Yeah.
And my real life experience was not in line with what I was being told at home. I was actually having negative experiences with girls at school. I remember being late for a maths class. This was compounding on my limited belief. And for being late for a maths class, I had to go and sit on the table full of girls, right? And again, I just remember walking out that, like, just being I was a young guy, so you take everything like
so personal.
So I was like, shit, like, girls don't like me. 6 years old or something. And anyway, so that was that, and then I went to an all-boys school for 5 years, so I didn't really have an opportunity there to sort of mix with any girls. I mean, granted, there are, like, little things that happen outside of school and stuff, but I just kept myself to myself. I wasn't really interested in integrating too much. I was too busy running around with a camera, throwing myself in bushes, thinking I was doing a jackass. That kind of, like, that was kind of what I was doing.
That's gonna be your life.
And and so it was 5 years there, and I actually went to study motorsport engineering for 4 years. So again, there's going to be no girls on the motorsport engineering course,
Perfect.
So that's the trajectory of like, as far back as I can, go back in my head. It's okay. That is from early school life, to growing up, and these are the things, the limited beliefs that I was carrying earlier on in life. I actually do have. I don't talk about this much, but I actually do have a deformity in my chest, which is called pectus excavatus. So that hit my confidence when I was younger also. In the changing rooms, I just looked different. It'd be jokes like, oh, why have you got a dip in your chest? Oh, I fell off my bike and my hand up. Just make up some bullshit.
Shark,
And but later on in life, that doesn't really affect me now. But that certainly did when I was younger. So there's all these little things in childhood that really do play a part, and then steer you in the direction where you're going in life later on. And of course I went on to teach my friends. When I started learning about this stuff, I thought, wow, this is amazing. This isn't just about meeting women.
No.
This is about how you are with people.
Yeah.
And if you get good with people, you effectively become a master at building relationships. What can you not do with that power?
Those
I
skill
agree.
sets.
So I was going to say, one of my friends actually, when we talked about the book The Game, I don't want to keep going on about it because I know there's more to it than that, but he was like, it's not, people think it's a book about dating and sex and that kind of stuff, but he was like, it's a sales book really. It's about it's about selling yourself and building relationships and that kind of thing, and that really triggered with me.
Absolutely. I mean, a good salesperson doesn't call himself a salesperson. They're a relationship manager. The moment you put that label on yourself is the moment you're giving yourself an obstacle to get doing the deal.
Exactly. Was there anything in particular that just sort of triggered that moment? Was it that you hadn't come across the game, or was there anything in particular that you thought, I need to change something here?
Well, I think it's that the social circle that you just kind of fall into. You have no control of it. It's just like social circle. Oh, it's of convenience, effectively. Like you go to school, you're in the same classes. You kind of just bundle together, and you just kind of go through life, and then you just always with these people. So you have friends of convenience, and then you have friends of value. So I started thinking, okay, well these are obviously my friends of convenience, and I do love them to bits, but maybe I should position them in a different area of my life because they're not adding value to this area of my life now. So I started being a bit savvy with it. I looked around, I thought, who could I actually share my knowledge with? As I was starting to learn, I was going out, just splintering away from the groups, just trying little things out, seeing that women were responding differently. I thought, Jesus, this is amazing. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to teach this. A friend of mine who's part of the indie scene, and I was more like commercial, like clubs and R&B and that stuff. I was like, well, that would be really interesting because every week, what we can just do some sort of crossover and introduce each other to different crowds that we'd never normally have access to. And it was amazing. We went out for 2 years, and he got a girlfriend at the end of it, and I was like, you fucking... And I was like, what are you doing? But then at that point, I came to realise it was like, that we're all in this for different reasons. Some of us may, really want to build a lifestyle out of this. Some of us just want, to develop themselves so they've got the ability to meet someone that's in line with their values, and then settle down after a couple of months, and there's so many reasons and so many wants and needs that people have. And that was the first time I thought, okay, what do I want from this? Because up until that point, it was just like, I just want to understand human behaviour a lot better than what I already do, And so he was one of the first guys I taught, and there was another guy after that for another year. I took him out. I think he was just fed up with it. Fed up with my persistence. He's like, Johnny, I've got a girlfriend. I never met her.
She doesn't exist.
So where is she then?
And just in terms of family and friends, then, I mean, what would you tell your parent? What would you say to your parents? This is my job now, or this is what I do for a living.
Well, it's very funny. So, so when I first started, I was working for my family business that's actually involved in the welding industry. Okay, so my father is, he's a electrical engineer by trade, and he's got a business, and I worked in there, and I was using actually a lot of the skills that I'd learned in this stuff in that business to open up a lot more accounts for them. So I was going on industrial estates, knocking on every single door, and just I always had loads of accounts, but the way my father built the business, he built it with him inside it, and it was just it hit the ceiling of what we could do. It was very frustrating, but at the early days, it was I was juggling that business with kind of this, and I kind of got to a point where I just had to kind of jump ship at one point. And when, I was really working like a dog. I was doing I was working. I was burning the midnight oil. I remember just being absolutely exhausted back at work, and I go, I've really got to give this a go. You know, it was a time where I've got to jump ship. You know, pretty much what you guys are discussing when you said about the recruitment stuff and in this. And so that's why when you were saying it earlier, I could relate. And you know, it was very emotional for me because it was the first time that I really had that kind of embraced my father, and I just fucking started crying because like he's my father. He's built this family business, his legacy, he wants to pass it on, and I'm taking a risk here. I'm saying, well, no, I'm gonna. If I don't do this, I'm gonna go on begrudging you for the rest of my life, and that's gonna affect our relationship effectively. And he turned around and he was like, well, I can see you doing something with this, and you should go for it. But at the beginning, when I started, I told him, I was like, I'm doing this dating coaching thing. He's like, fuck's that? It's pie in the sky, right? So it was really warming to like, and I would say, because you mentioned that you have your audience is interested in business and maybe startups and stuff like that. I would say that there's a lot of people that say you have this idea of you or what you can or cannot do, but what's that idea based on? You know, you have to give them evidence for them to give them a bit more perspective, right? And that's definitely what happened with me and my father. And I would say my relationship with my family improved tenfold after that.
Really?
Oh, wow.
Because we don't go home. We're not talking about invoices and
business.
We're talking about life. You know,
it's
got depth to it.
And do you feel that actually it would have perhaps been different if you had gone in? I mean, to be honest, I would have been in a similar situation. You know, if I hadn't gone off and done what I've done, you know, I would have been probably working for my dad, and chances are we probably wouldn't have necessarily the relationship that we do now. You know, would have argued, would have probably disagreed on everything, would have spent every day with each other. I mean, do you feel that that's almost probably, you know, benefited the relationship with you and your dad, or do you feel that if you were working together, it would have?
If he was working in my business?
No, if you were still working for him.
If I was still working with him, I mean, it depends on. I mean, there's a lot of factors with being this. I think it's very difficult to show someone the way that things are moving in the world.
Yeah.
For example, like marketing, right? I was driving around when I was doing the field sales. I was driving around in a van with no signage on it for years.
It's like this makes sense.
This is a free advert. Why haven't we done this yet? And it's just little things like that that just like, come on. You know, but it's different. You know, it's they're not coming from that mindset, and you really just, I think, you really just have to just do it. You know. Rather than just sort of ask permission all the time, just fucking do it. So, and it's, you know, I think, you know, it's family business is interesting to me. It's obviously there's a few conflicts that go on, but I mean, I've got nothing but gratitude and thanks for my father. I think I learned so much about business, you know, being around that. At such a young age. And absolutely. I mean, you know, just stuff I think you just don't learn at university or college. You know, if you're just around in the office and you're seeing disputes going on, you're seeing invoices, you're seeing like all the systems in place. Like the conversations I've had with people that are they're in business, they're just starting out, like they don't get all this stuff because they've never done it. You know, so it's it was a very valuable experience.
In terms of personal relationships and stuff like that, I mean, has it had much of an impact on you? I mean, you know, do people come up to you and think, oh God, like, you know, this guy's a professional like dating coach?
Well, I think that the irony of it is this: I'm a difficult person to date. Right? If you type in my name, you're like, what the fuck is this guy all about? You know what I mean? Like, no one's gonna have the problems that I have. You know, I'm recently single, and I've just went on all these dating apps, and you know, I realised I had to actually remove my Instagram connection on it because everyone's like, "Oh, what? Like, are you pitching business or what's going on here?" And it's little things like this, like that people don't have problems with, and I have to. For me to be with someone, I'm looking for something very niche. They have to understand people. They have to be emotionally secure of themselves. A lot of my work involves like me being in social scenarios. you know, a lot of the time speaking to women, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I'm the safest person to date because I don't have that itch that needs a scratch.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
like, I've done all that. I just
we
want
actually discussed this before. We were talking about that.
something that's missing, but actually the relationship you need to focus on fixing is the one you have with yourself.
Mm.
Yeah.
So, you know, like me, my lifestyle has completely changed recently, and it's been amazing. Like I was saying to Ava, and she just laughed at me, but I was saying that I was like, I drink loads of water now, and I feel
Yeah.
great, right?
Yeah.
But like, it's a personal trainer's like biggest secret. You know, when you go to a personal trainer, like, oh yeah, drink so many bottles of water a day,
Yeah.
and like you do feel amazing. And I was getting this thing, like I was getting like puffy cheeks, and I was getting a bit of like a pouch here.
Yeah.
And I was like, why am I getting this? You know, I'm okay. I'm you know, it's because I wasn't hydrating myself. So I read up on this water retention thing. You retain water in certain parts of your body, and it makes you look unhealthy. I was like, well, that's what I was having. So now I feel really good.
Yeah.
I'm at the gym every day.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm reaching back out to a lot of friends that I've just been out of touch with. You know, and also looking in other areas of my life in terms of, you know, just reconnecting with yourself. I did a great interview with Tony J. Salimi recently, and one of his quotes that I really liked was, you know, you got to see your body like a vehicle. Like, you know, if you've got a car, you check that in for an MOT once a year.
Yeah.
We also need to do that with ourselves.
Yeah.
And we just
Yeah.
don't tend to do that. And then, you know, when you're in a relationship, the time just flies by, and you're not really thinking about yourself.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, it's, I say, now is a time to be, you know, repairing a relationship with yourself, and you know, there's no reason to quickly replace that intimacy. Like, it's out there. Like, people are out there. Yeah.
No, absolutely.
And I've been keeping a bit quiet because we'd love to talk to you about dating, and that's kind of something I'm involved in at the moment. Peter's in a relationship, so but yeah, I'd be fascinated to hear from your perspective some of the things that we've kind of discussed before. So I think I might have mentioned to you when I emailed you that, you know, I read the game about 6-7 years ago or something like that, and it was a really interesting read. And I am definitely happy I read it, but sometimes I do question whether or not it was also the worst thing I did, because for me, the game made me become very overtly tactical in terms of how I approached women, to the extent that my objective was, I must make this person like me at all costs. And sometimes I actually forgot to enjoy the encounter myself, so maybe it was quite hard to develop a genuine connection, because mentally I was kind of up here with like a helicopter view down on myself, analysing every interaction, body language, overthinking everything I'd said and that kind of stuff. So I think an awareness of tactics and stuff is probably, or, you know, methodologies that help with seduction is probably, it's good to have that awareness, but I think for me I probably took it so far that I was really over-analysing everything. And maybe I wasn't being myself and wasn't being authentic. What's your kind of view?
I think it's a really great question. I think, and this doesn't have to be about dating, but I just think when you're trying to learn something completely fresh and new, I think we tend to analyse absolutely everything we're doing because we just want it to be right. And there's going to be a stage. There's going to be you know, a certain amount of time where, you know, no one's natural. Right? No one's a natural at meeting women, right? They had these influences or something around them somewhere. They just probably were not aware of it, right? And they've took it all in, and then they've learnt the habits and adopted the habits. And there's different forms of, you know, why we're reading books like that, because we didn't have the influence, right? So we're trying to like program our minds to get it, so it then becomes natural. It becomes a habit. So I feel like maybe at that stage where you were reading and you were overanalyzing everything, like everything was so raw. So of course everything's like a jungle, right? You're like, whoa, this, that, and the other. And you know, for a good part of my life, yeah, I was measuring everything. You know, I would go out, and it wasn't about. I want to really put this out there. It wasn't about going out and getting laid. You know, I mean, that was the byproduct of having a great conversation with someone, right? But it wasn't the goal. In fact, I would go as far as to say every time that me and my friends would say, right, we're going out to get laid tonight. We never get laid.
Yeah.
You know, because you put so much pressure on
true.
yourself. You're like, okay, well, right, let's go and talk to me. But you don't do anything. You go, we'll just go out for a cigarette and then come back. Oh, okay, she's gone. You know, it's so yes, you do have to analyze everything at the early stages. You have to. It's, you know, it's like an example. Maybe you want to try out approaching a group of people. So you have this idea or something you've read or a format or something. You go over there and you run that template, and you just see how people respond. The most important thing that you do is you get that experience, and you ask yourself 3 questions: what did I do? What went well? And what will I do better next time? Right? And so you're constantly, you know, positively critiquing yourself. You're never putting yourself down. And also, to understand why it worked, right? Because then you can go, okay, and you can understand the principle behind it, to then come up with your own kind of thing based on that ideology and something that's a bit more congruent to your character rather than something you just read out of a book. Like, I don't give my students stuff to say because that's not congruent with them. I give them the mechanisms, you know, the psychological mechanism as to why this would work, why someone would respond to that. And from that, you know, we then workshop, you know, language that is more congruent to them. So, look, the game's always had a lot of critique, and you know, journalists always attack it by pulling out that thing like the neg or something like that. But that itself has been completely taken out of context. People tease each other all the time. You know, like saying like, "Oh, why are you wearing that jumper? Did your boyfriend get it for you?" Like something like that. Do you know what I mean? Like that's I'm joking. That's a tease. Do you see? Like that's fun and that's playful. We all do that. So, you know, it has been sensationalized in the media a lot. I think for me, it was a stepping stone to a whole bigger world. I think what needs to be addressed is helping guys and girls knowing what they want in detail and giving them direction. I felt that book didn't give people direction, it just gave them the ability to get excited, get up and start meeting people. You know, that's what I think that book did do. It did bring a lot to the surface of the dark side as well. You know, you talk mystery was you know, going through depression and stuff like that. Like that's very real. You know, it's a reminder of like, you know, we're all humans at the end of the day. You know, and you know, I think when you have too much of anything, it can come back and eat you. I mean, when I was going through a stage of meeting a lot of women, having a lot of experiences, you know, I remember seeing like 12 girls at once, right? And everyone, you know, your mates were like, "Wow, you're Jack the Lad," and you're like, "Nah, man, I'm losing hair over this." Like, it gives you anxiety, and you just feel morally wrong. And you know, that's something you have to really, you don't want that. You really don't want that. It's you got too many people's emotions on the table, and it's not fun. Just keep it simple. And I think the great thing about, you know, wanting to develop this area of your life, getting good with people, is you really can experience whatever you want, but just be careful. Be careful and you know, listen to the people around you and who it's affecting.
I think it's quite interesting you say that as well, actually, because I think, you know, when you are single, it's kind of there's this whole, you know, who you speak, your friends say to you, who you speaking to at the moment. You know, oh yeah, you know, I've got a few on the go, and I'm speaking to. It's almost like trying to I've got like 5-10 girls on the go. I'm texting loads of girls, and actually, like you say, you get into a position where you're like, oh god. Like, I need to text them all back. I need to this.
You need to put in a spreadsheet.
You just lose
I don't
track.
think I've ever had that.